Well, producer Des is ready, so you know what time it is. Welcome to House of Champions, YouTube friends. Drop in your comments and those questions in the chat, and make sure you hammer the like and subscribe buttons. Now, today, we're previewing Wednesday's clash between Manchester City and Arsenal, a game that could reignite the Premier League title race or all but end it. Can the Gunners hold their nerve against Pep Guardiola's Manchester machine? We discuss the game and project both teams' results for the rest of the season, and we'll have some time at the end of the show to talk a little bit of Tottenham. We'll talk a little Calcio, and we'll discuss Bayern Munich's latest Bundesliga blunder. Have they given up the title? And how's the champions with us today? We have James Bench, Michael Hood, and Nigel Rio Coker. James Bench, how you doing? How you feeling?
Yeah, I'm good. I spent most of the weekend sorting my travel out to Manchester, which is ruinously expensive for CBS, but that's not my problem. I'm staying in a hotel by Old Trafford, so doing what I can to save the company money. But really looking forward to this. Certainly the biggest game of the season, the biggest game since those Man City Liverpool games last season. I can hardly wait.
Mike, you seem excited.
Yeah, well, but anytime anyone says Old Trafford, I get excited, especially after this weekend's results. No, but can't wait. I know, Nige, I had to dish that one out. Cannot wait for this match. This has been the blockbuster matchup of the season, and now it's here.
Nigel Rio Coker, it's not just at the top of the table. This Premier League campaign has been excellent all across the board, top, bottom, and in the middle. The fight for Champions League spots, it's all entertaining.
This is what makes the Premier League unarguably the best league and most entertaining league in world football, because every game matters. And that's what I love about it. And the fact of, people moan about, it's always the same teams. No, it's not. Newcastle are breaking the curse of getting into that top four. You look at the relegation fight, like we've just said, there's about 6 or 7 teams that can possibly go down. And we're talking about big historic clubs with massive fan base. And this is what football fans want to see. You don't want to get to this part of the season. It's only a 2-horse race to go up, and then basically 3 teams are going down, and that's it. And then in between, everything doesn't really matter. This is what we love about it. And I think it's only hopefully going to continue to encourage more competitiveness for next year, because it's just taking the Premier League to another level.
No doubt about it, Nigel. Well said. And I think we're all very excited about what's taking place tomorrow with Manchester City up against Arsenal. James, I'm coming to you first, obviously, with this one. Arsenal have dropped a few points over the last couple of games, in particular on the road, a couple of draws. Haven't been losing many games. They're difficult to beat, that is for sure. And certainly the heart and determination has got them back into games and managed to get a point from some games where they probably deserve to lose. However, picking up a point is a massive point, because it still means they've got a big chance of lifting that Premier League title. Of late, what have you noticed from this Arsenal team? Are they feeling a bit of pressure? What have you noticed from their performances being in the stadium?
Yeah, it's a hard one to fully call. And I thought Jamie Carragher made a really good point, our CBS colleague on Sky, where he sort of said, and I sensed it in the West Ham game, that there was actually a little bit of arrogance. That when a team plays as well as Arsenal can play, and certainly played in some of these games, they actually start to think the job's done. But that wasn't the case against Southampton. I think in that game, they panicked for a moment. It was the first time. Obviously, that's just all comes down from that misplaced pass from Ramsdale. Actually, and then, going 2-0 down. And actually, they responded pretty well. I know that 3-3, it's not a great result. It probably will go down as the result where it became apparent they weren't going to win the title. But, that's fighting spirit. That's what you need to show. It's the mark of champions sometimes, is getting a point where you don't deserve one, or a point where a point looks beyond them. And they were 3-1 down in the 88th minute, and they got something. So there is spirit there. There is belief. What there isn't is William Saliba. And that's going to be the real problem that we're going to come on to talk about, no doubt, throughout this pod. The defense was a little bit more shaky after the World Cup with him in it, but without him, everything has changed. They can't defend so high up the pitch with Rob Holding at centre-back. They used to have a sort of sweeper in Saliba and an aggressive defender in Gabriel. Now they have 2 aggressive front-footed defenders. Rob Holding can't really pass the ball either very well, so Thomas Partey's coming back into centre-back. Everything is kind of being thrown for 6. By Saliba's absence, or was it at Mikel Arteta's press a few hours ago? And there's no chance he's back tomorrow. Probably not back against Chelsea. Quite possibly, and probably is what I'm hearing, won't play again this season. So, yeah, it's not great news for Arsenal at all.
Yeah, that's a massive miss in Saliba, but you see the domino effect that's happening up the field. My eyes are on Thomas Partey. In the last couple matches, he hasn't been the Partey that we've been used to. Before the last 3 matches, he was one of the best defensive midfielders. And on this pod, we've talked about, is it Rodri for the 2 best defensive midfielders in the entire Premier League. Rodri has elevated his game. Partey's regressed a bit. And I think it's down to the domino effect that you mentioned of having Saliba out. Self-inflicted wounds. That's what's been Arsenal's demise. Against Liverpool, self-inflicted wounds in terms of positioning. Against West Ham, Partey gives up the ball and it ends up in a Paqueta PK. Against Bournemouth, it's Ramsdale, self-inflicted wounds left and right. If you are Arsenal and you're going to the Etihad, you have to get that out of your system. And I like the fact that they got the draw, the character that builds, but you cannot come from behind. You cannot be in the deficit that you've been in the last match and expect to get a result against Manchester City.
Mm-hmm. I'll have to say, for me, I just want to add 2 things. I think the one thing that I would say is I disagree with Jamie Carragher in the sense of saying arrogance, James, because for me, you talk about Jamie Carragher who played for Liverpool. We played against them many times and they were very arrogant. So don't give me that arrogance one. I like arrogance.
Probably the most arrogant, really, that Liverpool team, wasn't it, Nigel?
Pardon?
Probably the most arrogant I've seen.
Yeah, exactly. Any player who played for Liverpool, they were super arrogant. They felt that they're going to win every game. So don't give me that arrogance talk, because to be a champion and to be a team that wins the Premier League, you need that arrogance. You need that belief in yourself. So I disagree to that. I think my take on this is the squad. The squad comes into question. Like you said about how important Saliba is. The difference between Arsenal and Manchester City is next man steps up for Manchester City. Their squad is good enough to compete in the Premier League and finish in the top 4. The players on the bench. That's how much strength in depth Manchester City have. Arsenal don't have that. Instead of saying arrogance, I would say what Arsenal's problem was, they slightly got distracted. There was a lack of focus, because when you have that focus and you have that strength in depth, you concentrate on yourself. You have that tunnel vision of next game, next game, next game. That's what Arsenal didn't have. And then slowly, as results went one way or the other, draws, you start creeping into, oh my God, Man City are coming up behind us. All the press is coming and everything like that. If Arsenal stayed focused on their task in hand, and that comes from, and I'm not blaming Arteta at all. I think he's done a tremendous job. If they can stay focused on themselves and stop worrying, they probably would have gone on to get the other results. I think that a bit of outside influences and noise in Manchester City's form and how they're playing came into that, and that's when doubt started to come in this Arsenal team. And that's just my opinion in why I feel went wrong.
I actually, Nigel's really talked me around there, and I think he makes a good point both, and you can almost combine them, the points about the strength in depth and the mentality. Because I think if you go back to that Southampton game, Granit Xhaka absolutely exudes a confidence going on to cockiness. And when Arsenal playing this well, that's no bad thing. The problem is, if a Granit Xhaka goes out for, if Gundogan goes out for City, they'll move Bernardo in, or they'll bring in some other elite level player. Arsenal brought in Victorian chimney sweep Fabio Vieira, who, and this is the thing, is I think the first 11, the first 12 or 13.
Wait, did you just call it a Victorian chimney sweeper?
Oh, man. I'm so
so
happy
he does not look like an athlete. I mean, and so, to an extent, this is sort of, Arteta does have other options, but doesn't always make the right call. But, he does not have the arrogance of that first 11 that blitz the Premier League. He, in that game, was showing for not the ball, or he was showing for a different ball, because he doesn't have that confidence. He's not part of the winning machine fully. It's really hard. I don't know if, as a manager, if it's even possible to kind of imbue your fringe players with that. But it's just what Nigel said. And it sounds like Xhaka, my expectation is that Xhaka will be back, even though Arteta said he was a doubt. Those sorts of players can sort of win you titles, but your reserves, they just don't have that title winning nous.
Yeah, and I think the biggest show, James, is for me, William Saliba. William Saliba, when he plays at the game at a different level in the sense of great football intelligence. He is such a leader in that back line that everyone else raises their game. They have that extra confidence because they know he's playing. That's what some vital players do. We saw it with the arrival of Van Dijk, being able to push Liverpool over that line and Alisson to win the Premier League title after how many years. That's how influential Saliba has been for Arsenal. We're seeing now when he's not playing, that back four is not the same. Gabriel
More Van Dijk than Van Dijk this season.
Yeah, or Van Dijk as well.
So
that's what I'm saying. So that's the big problem that you've got. But Manchester City probably is the only team in the Premier League, like James said, one person goes out, next one comes in. They're just at that same level. And they're just so how would I say, focused on knowing what they have to do at Manchester City, which is constantly winning football matches. So I think for me, more than anything, it's just that slightly strength of depth that hasn't been there for Arsenal, especially for their vital signings. When they're missing, they're not the same team.
Mm-hmm. Knowing that Rob Holding has struggled with the partnership with Gabriel, James, Nigel, question for you as well. Ian, if you're Mikel Arteta, is this a match where you might move Ben White into center back and maybe reshuffle the pack? Or do you keep it the way you've gotten to this point and see where the chips fall?
I mean, we've been talking about this a lot in the Arsenal pack, and we're talking about this in the press conference. The challenge is you don't just get to shuffle Ben White to centre back, and he is brilliant at right back. You then are going to have to find someone to play at right back, and Takahiro Tomiyasu is injured, so pretty much the only senior option you have there is Thomas Partey, and then that means moving Jorginho into midfield, and then you've compromised a lot of your team to get rid of Rob Holding. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be averse to doing that, but you have to know what you're doing then, and that is, that is blowing up your whole team because you don't trust Rob Holding. That's a big risk.
The biggest thing you've got to look at for this, Michael, and everyone, is the fact of, yes, you're playing Man City, you're going against Haaland. I think for me, you have to put your most alert and intelligent centre-back to say you have to be around Haaland. Like, Haaland is your man today, and it becomes a more individual matchup than a big tactics thing. Because if you don't have a centre-back playing that can compete physically with Haaland, but also has the football intelligence to be aware, like, where is he? Where is he? Just because he's not near you doesn't mean he's not a danger. Like, knowing his presence in the box and how he plays, it becomes more individual. I think it has to become that way in the sense of how big this game is. It becomes really individual, and it's about winning individual battles all over the pitch. This is Arsenal's cup final.
Yeah, I think we've all kind of heard that tone before, where knowing your role is going to come into play massively there. And James just pointed out that if you move one player and you're trying to, have this little domino effect around the team, it's also so important to make sure that the fullbacks recognize their duty to support the centre-backs in this position. Yeah. And then you talked about Partey in midfield, like the centre of that midfield supporting the centre-backs with Erling Haaland and Kevin De Bruyne, how important that's going to be to make sure they all stay as a unit, obviously recognizing how dangerous Erling Haaland is and then how dangerous Manchester City perform. We've all talked about Manchester City, and I think we recognize that they might be up there with one of the most entertaining teams to watch right now. And it doesn't matter who plays. They could drop players out, put another one in, and nothing really changes. It just continues to go. It's like a train. It's a machine right now. But Nigel, obviously from your experience playing in big games when it comes to the Premier League with pressure, and Pep Guardiola also is going to feel pressure going into this game because this is a bloody good Arsenal team that could go there. And we have seen it before where Manchester City, even though not of late, where they have been on a very good winning run, they have conceded first goals. They have gone in at halftime where they've been in a draw. They have gone in games where they've had to really show their best. And maybe they need to show their best once again to beat this Arsenal.
I disagree with you. And I think Pep Guardiola will probably be laughing and very happy because the points that Arsenal have dropped, he knows the title is his. He doesn't have to put tremendous pressure on these players. As long as they don't lose, Manchester City will win the league title. That's what Pep's saying. I think for me, he'll probably be taking the pressure off his players and saying, just go out there and play football. Because it's more on Arsenal than it is on them. And I just feel that it's going to be a great game, and more pressure and burden lies on Arteta than it does on Pep. Playing in that second place, catching up, I feel is easier than being in Arsenal's position. And I think the games that have gone before have been Arsenal's downfall more so than anything else. And the worst thing that Arsenal can do is go there playing on emotions and leave themselves vulnerable. Do Arsenal have the capability in players to win? Yes. Will they win? I find it very unlikely to see that happening just because of the form that City in right now, and also because of the problem at centre-back that Arsenal face. And you're facing probably one of the world's greatest strikers in Erling Haaland right now. And that kid is always hungry to score goals. And for him to score goals against Arsenal and maybe take Manchester City top of the league and win the Premier League, that's all that kid is focused on. And it's great to see. And for Pep, it'll be great to have a player like that. You don't have to do it because Haaland is going to be on a mission. And the problem is right now, it's how Arsenal will be able to maintain that. But like James said, you can move Partey in there. You can twinkle the midfield again because Arsenal do have Saka. And if, oh gosh, what's his name? It's just gone in my bloody head now. Jesus
Martinelli.
and Martinelli play as well. They've got pace. And if one problem causes Manchester City problems, it's pace when that ball is turned around. If you get that ball to Jorginho, he has the ability to make those passes and cause problems for Arsenal to be a real counter-attacking threat.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you're giving Martinelli his dues, because he has been in fuego since the World Cup. New contract, Gabriel Jesus out. He stepped up, and in the last couple games, what hasn't gone right defensively has gone right offensively well for him. Look for him to be a factor. Can't sleep on Jack Grealish as well. He scored 5 goals, league goals this season. 3 of them have been against Manchester United, Arsenal, and Liverpool. This guy's becoming a big game player. And on the other side of the ball, Manuel Akanji. That 1v1 battle between he and Martinelli, Akanji playing in that back three, if he shifts out and becomes that right back, for Arsenal, if Martinelli can get the better of him, then it's advantage Arsenal. But if Akanji keeps Martinelli at bay, then I think Man City will win.
All right, great stuff, boys. That's brilliant. I mean, obviously, I'm excited for the game. I think we're all very excited. I haven't had to say too much in this first segment. We're already 16 minutes in, and neither of you, all 3 of you, haven't shut up. So it's great to know that we've got a massive game on our hands here, and I don't have to say too much. On the other side of the break, we're going to turn our attention to what our projections will be, obviously, results-wise, and how we see the season playing out for both of these two giants. And also, we'll get an opinion from James on the other side of the pitch for the Gunners as well. So stick around.
Magisterial here. Artigliere del campionato brasileiro. Colpisce ancora. Golazo.
James Benj, you had to sit there and take a little bit of heat there, obviously, with us talking about Manchester City, but you wanted to add a little bit more about Arsenal on the other end of the pitch.
All that heat is totally valid, and I think I was offering as much of it as anyone else. And the one thing I would point out is the real quality and character of Arsenal's attack. I know that, Nigel and Mike were mentioning Martinelli there, who has been wonderful. And you can say the exact same of Bukayo Saka. These are 2 players that really deliver at the biggest moments. And look, it was really interesting. Kolo Toure actually compared Bukayo Saka to Michael Jordan in the week, which you think is absolutely mad until you remember, Jordan wasn't always Michael's 6 champions Jordan. He was a player that had to go through a lot of hardship to get there. And I think maybe we're seeing that, Saka is relishing the challenge of having the team on his shoulders at a very young age, and he continues to deliver in big moments. Maybe needs a supporting cast around him to go to superstar title-winning best player in the league. But that's within his capabilities. And if Nathan Ake is injured, which we think he might be, he could run absolutely riot. And then the only other thing I would say is everyone talks about City's strength in depth because Arsenal do not have that in defence and they do not have that in midfield, but they do have it in attack. They have Leandro Trossard will probably come off the bench, I think. Magnificent. One of the signings of the season. And if Arsenal won the title, he would be the signing of the season. Reece Nelson, not too bad either.
Just imagine if you got Modric, James, instead.
If only.
I think it's been proven.
If it was Modric, that would be great, but anyone but Modric.
I think it's been proven, James, with the attack and the weapons that they do have at their disposal when one falls out, obviously with the injury to Jesus, and then how Arsenal really stepped up in his absence. And they were fun to watch, man. Even without Jesus up there, man, oh man, they were just so electrifying to watch going forward. Okay, we have obviously got a lot of comments coming in here. I'm going to jump to a few of them before we get into our predictions as to how we see the season finishing out here. Ali A, clearly very excited about this game. Let's go Arsenal. Please beat Manchester City. Nigel with the hate. Arsenal have been complacent and are an emotional. It showed in the Liverpool game.
How am I hating?
Southampton game.
How am I hating? I'm just trying to understand. How am I hating? I'm just speaking the truth.
Nigel,
are we in a society now where the truth is too hard to swallow?
Nigel, we also know why you don't have social media because of your quick reactions. Let's turn to Vic. Vic says when you replace Saliba and Rob bombing Holding, they were thinking about City before Wednesday's game. They lost focus. He also said no Tomiyasu, hence White cannot play as that centre back, no squad depth. Vic, you seem like a coach. You seem like you've been coaching a little bit. You're always jumping in here with the Chelsea comments. We love to hear that. Kieran Tierney has played at left centre back before. That comes in from Ed. Gabriel versus Haaland. Good luck.
I saw this comment and thought this is absolute nonsense. Gabriel's been the best centre back. He's been better than William Saliba. Best centre back in the Premier League this season has been Gabriel because he covers the whole left flank. Zinchenko goes wandering into midfield,
That's a bold
James,
call.
Gabriel
That's a
comes
bold
in.
call.
Oh, I have to disagree
Yeah,
with you.
yeah.
Saliba is the
Best
best.
centre back in the league.
Listen, I'll tell you this now, James. If I was a captain still playing in this league, in this game right now, and I had a decent striker, do you know what I'll tell my striker? Play on Gabriel. He is going to make a mistake. He's going to do something that will give you an opportunity. He will always make a mistake in 90 minutes or let someone in. Gabriel is still too rash. Doesn't play at a calm level. Still too emotionally involved. Every game he plays in, that he'll make a mistake. That's just my opinion. But that's what I would do if I was captain.
I'm going to back that up, Nige. I'm going to back that up. I think what we've seen, the improvement from Gabriel has been because of the presence of Saliba. You take Saliba out, and the first thing you see is a rash challenge on Lucas Paqueta against West Ham.
But Mike,
that was not hit. No,
that's a good one. But okay, James.
No, but
what about the other one?
Up the field, but it was a rash challenge. We've seen it before.
I don't want to cut you off. Right? What about the other one against Southampton? Theo Wilcott's run, and Gabriel's running back was not. You know how quick Theo Wilcott. He didn't even look like he knew where the ball was or where Theo was.
I don't want to break down tape here, but go look there at that one and look how far behind the line Rob Holding is. He's about 10 foot behind the line. I mean, obviously he doesn't like Gabriel's not playing as well with Saliba, but like without Saliba, but like the drop off has been spectacular.
James, I'm going to come back to you because Matt's jumped in and he said, Arteta has been excellent, but is guilty of overplaying the likes of Saka and Odegaard, in my opinion. Very fair comment from Matt. Also, this one I think is directed at you as well, James. Ed says, oh, here we go again. Now Saka's the next Jordan. Really? This overhyping of Arsenal players is part of the problem with the club's mentality. Got caught up in their hype and now they're paying for it. James, we'll let you have the final word before we do get to our predictions and projections for the way the season will
I mean, that's a great opinion, not mine. And I think it's always important to remember you can draw comparisons without saying that Bukayo Saka is going to be the greatest footballer of all time in the same way that Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time. This overhyping of Arsenal players it only ever seems to be noticed by supporters of rival teams in much the same way that Arsenal supporters, with them, always seem to think that Harry Kane's overhyped, and they talk absolute nonsense when they say that. Bukayo Saka's not overhyped. He's one of the best players in the league.
I like that, James. I respect that, and I'm backing James up. Any comments about Saka, keep it to yourself, because this kid has been absolutely sensational. If you look at his age and the size of the club and the consistency, you got to give credit when credit's due. Been phenomenal.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right, let's take a look at the fixtures between now and the end of the season, if we may. Now, Mike, I want you to jump in real quickly on the fixtures, if that's okay with you, because I want to see where you think that maybe Arsenal could slip up between now. Obviously, we recognize that they're not all easy games here. Away to Newcastle, home to Chelsea. I mean, this is a tough run in here for Gunners.
Yeah, I'm keeping my eye on that Newcastle match. I've been there as a United fan, suffering that blow, the 2-0 blow. I think that is a trap game, and do not sleep on Brighton. Watch them at the FA Cup. Those two back-to-back matchups, those are tricky coming off the heels of City. Chelsea at home, I think they'll blow passing to Chelsea. Sorry, Vic, have been that bad throughout this season. But those two matches, circle them on the calendar for Arsenal fans. You are going to be sweating through the course of both 90 minutes.
James, you want to react to that real quickly?
Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of what Mike's saying. The one thing I would say about that Newcastle game, the fact that it was by far and away Arsenal's worst night of last season when they lost 2-0 and everything fell apart and they blew top four. I think Mikel Arteta has proven he's a coach that gets reactions in circumstances like that. So that's why I've got the win at Newcastle. But I think that will be followed by a defeat to Brighton, because Brighton will have a lot to play for. They're an excellent team, and Arsenal aren't quite perfect. And so that's kind of how I ended up on my 88 points, and I know what's coming. But I mean, yeah, like Mike says, I think you can write in Chelsea as 3 points, and it really could, even if they get a good result, it could all come down to the Newcastle and Brighton games.
Nigel, as you can tell, I clearly don't have much faith in the way Arsenal finish this season. What are your thoughts on the way they'll finish? You've got that.
No, honestly, I think for me, the Newcastle and the Brighton one will be the two stickiest and toughest ones. I think Newcastle's emphatic win against Tottenham has taken them to another level in confidence and belief, and they will want to finish the season strong. Coming up against Arsenal, I think that's just going to be going to St. James's Park, especially how they're feeling now. Wow, talk about atmosphere. It's going to be absolutely a big problem. And I think you got to give credit to Joe Linton and what's his other? I see so many footballers. I have to remember the names of it.
Callum Wilson.
Escapes me. No, not Callum Wilson.
Jacob Murphy, Joe Willock.
No, the other one. Gimaresh. Sorry, Gimaresh.
Oh, yeah.
Gimaresh,
Yeah, so you got to look at them two right now. They're playing sensational. I love the pairing of them in midfield and how they play. It just reminds me a bit of old school. Like one man does the defending job, the other one gets forward. It's just great to watch. And Brighton, they're one of the best teams to watch in the Premier League. I think anyone who really is a real football fan, I don't care what team you support, you have to say Brighton have been one of the best teams this year in the Premier League to watch. The style of football play, the excitement. If they had a striker, Brighton would finish top 4 this season. If they had a real clinical striker, Brighton would have finished top 4.
I just want to point out a comment from Vic, who I don't often agree with, but I do in regards to Ian's predictions here. I'm looking at Ian, and Vic has really hit the nail on the head here. He's got Chelsea scoring 2 goals. I can't believe anyone could predict Chelsea to score 2 goals the rest of this whole season, let alone in one game at the Emirates. No chance.
Yes, but James, on the other hand, Rafa's jumped in, and Rafa's just said, I'm with Ian. They're dropping points in almost every single game. Appreciate you, Rafa. Thanks for tuning in.
Well, Ian, how funny would it be, though, if Aubameyang actually gets the start for Chelsea?
He would love that.
That'd be massive.
He hasn't played for 12 months.
Hey, it's Arsenal's own teammate. He could stuff it to Arteta really and truly, and I wouldn't be surprised if Frank does that just out of reverse psychology and starts him and Aubameyang scores. That would be fun.
Yeah. I mean, it would be funny. It would be, well, probably not for Gunners fans, but it would definitely be an interesting story. That's for sure. Let's turn our attention to Manchester City between now and the end of the season. Obviously, I want to just basically kind of point out that Manchester City are the team to beat. So when you look at my predictions, you can understand why. But Mike, I'm going to come to you first here because you've got them finishing with the least amount of points here from all of us.
Yeah, I looked at the schedule, and given their run in Europe, this is assuming that they get past Real Madrid and get to the Champions League final, assuming that they did what they did at the weekend, get to the FA Cup final. They have a game pretty much every 3, 4, sometimes 5 days. And they have the depth, but they will continue to play. They have to play Erling Haaland, Kevin De Bruyne, their best 11 against Real Madrid. They will continue to see the wear and tear of that starting 11 going down to the wire. And I could just see the Brighton game, the Brentford game. I could see those as trap games, especially that Brentford game. They already slipped up against Brentford at home. I just wonder if that's the game where we look at and say, okay, they just got over the line in the end.
James, your thoughts on these predictions here? I'll run them through. Total points, James has 90. Fabrizio has 92. JJ has 92. I have 92. 94 for Nigel. And Michael with 89. James, your overall thoughts?
I think Mike's really hit the nail on the head there. And it's basically just what you think the trap games are going to be. And I don't know what it is about Sean Dyche that has convinced me that his team will, possibly by putting all 11 players in the goal net, will simply not concede against Man City. That aside, like I do agree with Mike that it might be, there might be some hard games in there, but also it's City. And I mean, I've got them dropping 4 points between. I mean, we say that Mike's been harsh. He's got them dropping 5 points between now and the end of the season. I've got them dropping 4. Like, you know, and these are the
games.
Ludicrous.
Nigel.
Mate, I just can't see it. I see a focused City. I just can't see it. I see a focused City. You look at their run-ins. There ain't really. I'll probably say one of the most difficult games might be Brighton, might be Brentford. But let's realize this from a tactical standpoint. This isn't the City of old, of Pep Guardiola with his false 9 and no one that's an aerial threat. This is an evolution of City where no matter how many people they put behind the ball, they can change and mix their game up and get the ball out wide. Kevin De Bruyne looks up and whips a ball in for an Erling Haaland coming in with a header. That's the different tactics that they can do in all these fixtures. And as much as Sean Dyche might try and frustrate them, you're not going to be able to defend great crosses, well, world-class crosses from a Kevin De Bruyne finding Erling Haaland. And it's just a different City you're facing now. You don't have to worry about this false 9 and this repetitiveness of system play. Erling Haaland gives them that X factor. I feel there's more real banana slips in Arsenal's fixtures, and also because of their current run of form, there's that fragileness in the mentality creeping in at Arsenal.
All right, let's have a look at our predictions. Obviously, as you gather from the points that we put out there, sorry to all the listeners there, I didn't mention the points for the Arsenal rundown. But the Premier League title predictions from every single one of us, James, Fabrizio, JJ, myself, Nigel, and Mike, Manchester City across the board. James, you really believe that?
Yeah, 100%. I think if anything, I might have been a bit generous to Arsenal. I think the bigger question is sort of like, what was it ever possible? Like, you know, are the standards that City have set, and we have to say the standards that City have set with the backing of a oil superpower, were they ever achievable for this Arsenal team? And I think that's kind of where I fall down on the side of no. You know, the Southampton result was a really bad one, but before then it felt like the title was slipping away. And it felt like that because they drew at Anfield and drew at West Ham. Now, not the West Ham of seasons gone by, but still, I remember, and Nigel, I have no doubt it was the same when you were playing in the Premier League. Absolutely no, the team that was top of the table, absolutely no problem getting a point at Anfield, no problem getting a point at West Ham, and you could still win the league. You know, draws are the new defeats in the Premier League right now. Yeah. City have set a level that is unachievable. Your only hope of winning the Premier League title is that Man City have an off year. Arsenal's only hope is that Pep Guardiola retires. That's the impossible level that they've set right now.
I think quickly, let me jump in. I'll just say I agree, but I just think that for me, it's the fact of City have built something. I think we need to give credit to Mikel Arteta, what he's done at Arsenal. And if he's given more time and more resources, give him another year or two, Arsenal could be on the same level as City. If they can really get the right players in, the recruiting has been great. The problem why Arsenal haven't been in this situation for so long time is because the recruiting has been so poor. Lack of direction, lack of real football knowledge. Arteta's installed all of this. Give him another year or two. He can build something like what Manchester City have, where Arsenal have a tremendous squad to compete on all levels. So everything takes time. That's just the reality. Not every club or manager is going to give you time. The only club that's beyond the club that's an establishment is Real Madrid, where they already do their own recruiting. You come in and manage. But other clubs could be built like this.
Yeah, we also have to keep in mind, just very quick for me, a big reason why we saw reverse and kind of detriment to Arsenal and depreciation. They've sold their best players over the last 15 years. That is not what the Arsenal, the title challengers, were doing. They were retaining best players. They had a core. Now they have it again. Yeah, now they have it again with a core of young players who are Arsenal through and through, adding talent bit by bit. They did it in the transfer window. I cannot wait to see them now take the next step, regardless of what they do in the Premier League run-in. I cannot wait to talk about them. I cannot wait to see them next season in the Champions League, and we'll be able to do that here on House of Champions.
Ed jumping in and saying Pep spoke to an NRC before he gave his final predictions this season. Clearly having a conversation with a former Premier League man. BX Gunner 81. I see Manchester City dropping 2 to maybe 3 points. Rafa, of course it's possible. Arsenal pissed away 3 winnable games in a row. Christian saying City is becoming the Bayern Munich of the EPL. In case you didn't notice, Christian, there's a title race in the Bundesliga. There's a title race in the Premier League. Okay, we're going to turn our attention to Tottenham Hotspur when we come back after the break, and we'll wrap up the show with our final thoughts. Stick around.
On Tottenham,
Italy's best clubs and brightest stars bring show-stopping skills and unbelievable thrills in the fight to the finish for the Scudetto. Stream every Serie A match live on Paramount Plus.
Welcome back to the House of Champions, everybody. You enjoy Nigel Reo-Coker, James Bench, and Michael Lahoud. Let's turn our attention to Tottenham, who fired Christian Stellini yesterday. Fired, relieved him of his duties, basically got rid of him, kicked him out the door, whatever you want to think about it. Not much time in charge of the football club. James, I'll come to you, obviously, working around that region. Real interesting thoughts on... especially from Chairman Daniel Levy this morning, his comments. It was really interesting to see this decision, but it's probably the right decision to get rid of Stellini and give the club still a chance to try and get into a top 4 finish, or am I wrong here?
I don't think it's about a top 4 finish. That's gone. That went in the first 20 minutes at Newcastle. Frankly, I don't think I think this is about a top 7 finish and getting any form of European football. They've got to play Manchester United on Thursday. I'll be at that. And Liverpool on Sunday. That you would think they would get lapped by Liverpool. who have games in hand. So did Brighton, so they would overtake them. They've got Villa on the 13th as well, and that's enough teams to send them out of Europe. And look, it just was not working with Christian. He was too tied to Conte's methods. I don't particularly know why they think it will work with Ryan Mason, who's got charge until the end of the season. I think maybe the best thing for them is to end up out of Europe. That'll be only the second time in 17 years, it has to be said. And to completely start this whole project afresh, to have some really grown-up conversations with Kane, Son, anyone that's interested in leaving, and kind of take this right back down to foundations. I mean, frankly, players like Christian Romero, I've never seen a more... I don't know what you guys thought watching it. I thought he was lazy, and I really am conscious of not using words like that generally because I think it's very hard to know what goes in the player's head.
You can. No,
he was lazy.
Lie. He didn't give a damn. He did not give a damn. Didn't look
and there
like he
are
wanted
so
to
many
be
players
there.
that played like that.
Yeah.
And have played
His
like
head
that
was
on
elsewhere,
multiple occasions.
100%.
So quick on him. I'm so glad you mentioned Romero. Since the World Cup triumph of Argentina, he's looked like a player whose head has been elsewhere. Hasn't looked like the same Romero who's had the bite last season. Thought he was such a difference to that back line for Tottenham Hotspurs and that top four finish. I know Harry Kane, Yin-Min Song doing the business up front, but Spurs, they were difficult to play against in the run-in last season. This season, since he's got that shiny medal, he's still in Buenos Aires celebrating, with Messi, celebrating Emi Martinez. I wish I could stand up and do the Emi Martinez thing, but I'd probably get fired. But that's a bit for me.
What about your own Martinez that plays for your Man United that you love so much? He's still celebrating too, right? He's gone back in the treatment room celebrating, isn't he?
He's been decent.
I know, but he's still celebrating. Anyway, Ian.
He's in rehab in Argentina right now.
Tottenham, for me, is laughable, and it's just great to watch. I'm sorry. It really is great to watch because I think this decision right now just shows where Tottenham are at. I just don't understand why you'd have kept him on after you sacked Conte, knowing how close they are to management. It makes no sense. Make that decision from them. I think them sacking him now is just a cop-out for how much of a lack of direction there's a belief in these players. People are saying, they blame Conte. No, I believe now the blame needs to be at Levy. Levy, for me, has been the problem at Tottenham now for so long because it's always been about financial gain for Tottenham more so than winning trophies. I remember when at one point Tottenham had one of the best models in the Premier League. They used to buy the best British players, keep them, compete, be successful, and sell them on for a huge profit. I'm talking about the times when they used to get Tom Hiddleston, Aaron Lennon, Michael Carrick, and then sold him on, Jermaine Defoe. They used to buy the best. That was a great model. And for some reason, they went away from that. And then the managers that they were getting in wanted more complete and ready players. And it just hasn't been the same for Tottenham. They went away from a model that was very good, very sustainable, and very profitable to them, where you still felt they're only maybe one or two players away from it. All of that's changed. And I'm not surprised when you look at Tottenham right now, where they're standing. And then again, where's the next generation of players coming through? The squad is getting older. How long is this rebuilding process going to be? When you look at the likes of competing against Brighton, Newcastle, and all these other clubs that are already kind of above them, Tottenham's been a joke. Great leadership always comes from up top. And if you want to compare it, you look at Brighton. You don't hear too much about the Brighton chairmans or anything like that. There's a philosophy. They get the manager in place. They let the manager manage. The mentality that's being created in that Tottenham dressing room has been facilitated by up top. Everything that Conte said about the dressing room, the mentality in that fight, that was shown against Newcastle. That's just the reality. But other great clubs that run well starts from up top, and that managers manage, let directors of football be directors of football. Tottenham's always had shady characters, shady people, and that's the reason why they're in right now.
There's a great statement being released by Tottenham chairman Daniel Levy to the fans after the decision to sack Christian Stellini. Fabrizio Romano posting it this morning. Sunday's performance against Newcastle was wholly unacceptable. It was devastating to see. He went on to say, we can look at many reasons why it happened, and whilst myself, the board, the coaches and players must all take their collective responsibility, ultimately the responsibility is mine. Christian Stellini will leave his current role alongside his coaching staff. Christian stepped in at a difficult point in our season. James, obviously Daniel Levy has to take responsibility. This was obviously nice from the players as well. You can let everybody know about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's never a great game when you come out of it with more statements issued to the supporters than you do goals or points. So the supporters or the players have said, this is from the players, this one, as a squad, we understand your frustration, your anger, it wasn't good enough. We know words aren't enough in situations like this, but believe us, a defeat like this hurt. I mean, and then goes on like this, well, thanks for your support. And we would like to reimburse fans with the cost of their match tickets from St. James's Park. And look, it's a good gesture. You know, it is better than nothing. Equally, I don't think fans really want a refund. I mean, by the way, it's at most 30 quid for an away ticket to a Premier League game. Getting from London to Newcastle is far more than £30. That's if you don't have to stay over, which based on British trains on a Sunday, you probably do.
Inflation.
But
Inflation's high.
It's just like they don't want you to give them their money back. They want you, the supporters want you to play good football, play with passion and play with pride. And they're more than they're more than happy to spend their money. It's not about like reimbursing, because also they know that 30 quid, however much this is going to cost each player, it's chump change. It doesn't really deal with what the problem is.
Words for me play a small part. Sorry, Ian. I was just going to say, words for me play a small part. I'm all about the action. And I understand what James said, but I'm all about the action. We've seen this before, blah, blah, blah. And the fact of he's saying that the performance is unacceptable, and obviously the manager now has become a scapegoat because he's not there no more. I had a friend of mine who was at the game, standing there, and he said Scalini was screaming at the players, and the players were just ignoring him. He was being ignored by the players. So how much of that is a responsibility to the manager or to the players? And also, whose responsibility is it that the players are in this situation where clearly they're not listening or respecting the manager? Who put him in position right now who put him in that position to be there and take over? So it's just common sense tells you where the blame really needs to lie. And now all these ticketing gestures, it's just all a lot of cobblers, mate.
Man, I tell you what, working in Major League Soccer for a weekend has got you fired up, Nigel Real Coker. Oh,
Ian, piss off. Piss off.
James, I'll tell you what, your audio is dreadful today. It looks like your internet signal or something like that is jumping in and out. If you need a speed dial from the Best Buy guys, let me know. All right, I'll send them on a plane.
So I didn't have to talk about Coppa Italia.
Feel free to jump out here. I'm going to hang out with the other boys while we discuss it. But thanks for everything, James, and really enjoy the game tomorrow as well. Coppa Italia, Inter against Juve coming up. It's tied 1-1. Obviously, good to see Romelu Lukaku back involved. And of course, the decision was the common sense decision, Mike, to get him back involved in this game. Your thoughts on the game and also that decision to get a big run back?
Yeah, I think it's the fairest decision. I was going to be incensed if out of everything that happened that he was going to be punished. I said it on Twitter. I thought it was ridiculous. But now the focus can get back to what's happening on the pitch. This is an intriguing tie. These are two teams that's having success in Europe. Juve just cast their ticket to the Europa League semifinals, while Inter doing the unthinkable, playing well in cup competitions. I think this is an Inter team. I give them the slight edge because they're back at home and they've slowly started finding form. And I think it's going to be behind the play of Andre Onana once again. He will have to be very good between the sticks to keep out a Juventus side that do have match winners within their side. Keep an eye on Federico Chiesa. I thought he was a bit of a standout at the weekend against Napoli. Ridiculous finish to that match. Very quick on that. Napoli get the 1-0 win. But Chiesa, he had that little dink, had that little bit of just special quality where he can have that individual moment of brilliance to unlock a back four or back five.
That one, go ahead, Nigel.
Nah, go on.
I say that game's coming up tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern on Paramount Plus. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I just thought of a song for Onana. Oh, Nana, what's his name? Oh, Nana, what's his name? That would be a great song for him, innit? For the fans. Now, common sense to bring Lukaku back in. But my thing is this. It's going to encourage the idiots to come out again because they're not going to change. I'm sure they're going to try and racially abuse him, which is going to mirror this tie. But it's just an interesting one for me. I just don't think sometimes with Juventus now in this current form, you just never know what you're going to get from them. And then now you're starting to think about Inter as well. How much have they got an eye for the semi-finals of the Champions League, for the Milan derby, for that? So it's a difficult tie to really call. And I feel it can go either way because Juventus do have the ability and the talent to turn over, to turn up and win this game. So it's a difficult one for me to call. I would probably give the edge to Juventus just because I feel that Inter will be concentrating more and have that eye on the semi-finals of the Champions League more so than this.
Producer Des jumping in to let us all know that 171 Juventus supporters have been banned, so everybody knows out there because of this situation that took place. 171 fans. It's just, it's absolutely.
They could make it 175. They could make it 250. No, it can go to 1,000.
Yeah,
honestly, man.
You know what's going to make a statement? 171. That's the number.
How did they get there, though? How did they get there? Did they go back and look at the footage and went, "Oh yeah, there he is."
His lips were moving. Yep,
they probably they probably use the formula how they do the projected goals and stuff like that with that stats and with all this, let's use that formula.
Expected racists in the stadium at 171.
Let's use that as our formula to ban certain number of.
You know what? There might be a new column. I think we need to start that up on House of Champions. Jeez.
We need to start the After Dark episodes where we can tell some real stories about dressing rooms and stuff like
Producer
that.
Des is working on it here. He's working on it.
He's been saying that for the last 2 years. It's like bloody being at Chelsea, innit? We're working on it. We're working on it. Come on, Des.
He's Irish Spanish, all right? He's in siesta mode right now. Give him a break, though. You all right?
Mate, I don't know what he is. He's like you. How many passports you got?
He's pissed at the athletic match over the weekend.
We gotta get out of here. That was a good game, by the way. We gotta get out of here. But real quickly before we do, Mike, just to you both here. It looks like we got a Bundesliga title race, and just for our one follower who mentioned it, I just want to mention real quickly that the Bundesliga title race is an absolute banger because Borussia Dortmund are now back at the top of the table here, and looks like they could win the title, or will they absolutely F this up once again? Just want to remind you here, Mike, Dortmund are at Bochum, they're at home to Wolfsburg, they're playing Gladbach, they're at Augsburg, and they're at home to Mainz. Bayern Munich are playing Hertha, Werder Bremen away, Schalke at home, Leipzig at home, and then finish at Cologne. Who's going to win the title here? Who's winning the title?
If there was ever a chance for Borussia Dortmund to get it right, I'm picking Borussia Dortmund. They're coming off their worst patch yet. It started in the Champions League. Since that second leg defeat to Chelsea, they've wobbled, and now they're getting it right. Getting that win against Leipzig has been the boost that they needed. For Bayern, they're entering their worst patch at the worst part of the season, and I think that's what's going to trip them up. The issues off the field, what's happening up top in the dressing room, that's what's going to cost them the title.
I agree. Nigel, new champion?
Oh my God, we're talking about a title race between Borussia Dortmund and Bayern Munich, everybody. Oh my, this must be new for me. This must be new. Cut the crap. Bayern Munich are going to win the title. Forget everything else. Bayern Munich are always going to win this title. That's
I don't know.
I'm saying.
No,
I'm backing Bayern.
I don't agree.
If Bayern don't win it, I owe you a bottle of whiskey and I owe you a bottle of tequila. High-end one. Let's
Producer
see.
Des, strip this right now. Put it on social media so that it's out there.
Ian,
because Nigel has a habit of not paying his bets.
Yeah, behave. Ian, let me know if you want whiskey or German beer. Michael, I know you drink cheap IPA, so I'll bring you a 6-pack.
All right, boys. Listen, let's get out of here. Great show, as always. Really looking forward to tomorrow. I will be back again on Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern with the one and only Fabrizio Romano. We're discussing all the latest transfer news, and plus I'll get his opinion on the big game as well in the Premier League. And then the boys will be back at 5 p.m. Eastern or post the Arsenal game at Manchester City with a little review of that game. Shout out to everybody who jumped in the comments, including Ed and Vic, who have clearly been going at each other at the comments. We have almost a record number of comments who have been disagreeing back and forth between each other. We appreciate you all. Thank you, everyone. Nigel, you got something to say?
Yeah, mate. Vic, just to let you know, I'm doing my coaching badges as well in Northern Ireland. In a couple of weeks, I'll be there.
Well, thanks for
telling us. Just letting you guys know. Do you know what I mean?
Thanks for telling us that we'll have record views as soon as you disappear from this show. Listen, thanks to everybody for listening to House of Champions. Take a minute to leave us a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Also available as video, so subscribe to us on YouTube. Appreciate every single one of you, including Nigel Rio Coker and Michael Hood. Thank you, boys. See you again.
Up the Villa. There you go.